Greetings, mortals, and welcome. Please present your tickets for validation. Thank you. Your existence has been acknowledged, and you have been granted access every Thursday and Friday. You will be accompanying your guides, Krista and Brandy, along with a world-renowned guest. They will be exploring an intriguing tendril of what humans refer to as reality each week, as they strive to advance you further down the path to the truths of your physical earth and what lies on the other side. Remember to please keep your hands and feet in the vehicle at all times, and do not exit until the craft has come to a complete stop.
Hey everybody, welcome.
Hey. Welcome. Happy Friday.
I'm finally back.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, God, where's Krista?
Yeah.
Where's my partner in crime?
It's been crazy, man. I'll tell you, between, like, as you know, like band, my daughter's color guard, your daughter plays. And
right.
We've had tournaments, we've had games, and then last night I had a work thing I had to go to. So it's just been crazy. But I'm back tonight.
Yay.
Finally.
Maybe things will start calming down now,
Yeah, well, my only problem is now we're going into winter guard.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, I know, right? Tell me about it. So this is never ending. Color guard has like totally taken over my life. And my wallet, because it's expensive.
Well, it's all expensive,
Yeah.
They $20 you to death.
Yeah. Well, my problem is, I had to pay $750 for her to do this.
Oh.
Yes. And then I had to buy the outfits. I've had to buy shoes. I've had to buy makeup. I've had to buy hair stuff. I've had to buy bows. It's crazy how they nickel and dime you. Now, winter guard is another $500 and no telling what the hell I'm going to buy. Oh, yeah. And I bought a flag bag. Yeah.
What?
I already have $1,000 invested in this.
You're like, where's the $1,000 going if I'm paying for everything?
Exactly. Well, I guess so this weekend she's competing in Indianapolis, Indiana. So she's in Indiana right now. So I still had to send her money. I still gave her $60 for food.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So I'm still paying, but I didn't have to pay for hotel or. Yeah.
Right. Well, see, my daughter's school, the good thing about my daughter's school is they have a boosters club, and the boosters pay for, like 80% of everything. Yeah. So I got lucky there.
I could work it, but I'm the type of person, I want to sit and watch the games. I don't want to sit there and sell popcorn. So I'm like, F it, I'll just pay it. So that's what I'm doing.
I'm not making popcorn. I want to watch football.
That's right. So yeah, it's crazy. And someone says you have to pay to be part of it. Literally, to be a football player, you have to pay. To cheerlead, you have to pay. I mean, it doesn't matter what sport or activity you do. You have to pay to be a part of in high school.
Oh my goodness. Well, your child does go to a really large school, so.
Yes.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And here's the thing. There's 130 band students because color guard's considered part of the band. So times that by $750. So 130 times 750. That's how much money that they've made just off of these kids right now.
Yeah. It's like, I know this is, where this is not all of this. Come on. Where is this money going?
Yeah. And then they got real picky, with makeup. I couldn't just go to Walmart and buy blue eyeshadow or whatever she needed. I had to order from Amazon a certain kind because it shimmered. Oh yeah. It's been a pain in my ass, let me tell you. Yeah. So
we're just like, what is going on?
I know.
What?
Right.
It's kind of like that discussion that we were having before the show started, and for everybody out there that does any streaming or anything and uses StreamYard, our StreamYard has gone up $200 more a month for the same program.
Yeah.
I was like, are you kidding me?
I kid you not. I can show you. I think I did send the screenshot to you, what they were trying to
Yeah,
charge
you
me.
did. I couldn't believe that. I said, so, for everybody out there that thinks this is free stuff, you can just do this for wrong.
Yeah.
This is
So
absolutely
I got a bill.
wrong.
I got a bill from StreamYard and usually I pay $100 a month. That's what Blondes and Booze pays. And it's fine. It's no big deal. Our problem is we have, as you guys know, Tex and BMR, Paranormal Paul, Randy, he's behind the scenes.
Right.
So
right.
we need all of these people to have access to our streaming platform. And so my problem is they've bumped us up, literally went from $100 a month and my bill is $300. I'm like,
that's what I don't understand that, because you can have one admin, but that's great. But like Krista, you've been missing. Right. So, I mean, you need another admin for number one to take over if you can't, or if you can't get in, you got somebody else who could get in. Exactly. And then we actually need a third admin, which would be Randy, our tech guy, because he has to get in and do all of this stuff so we can send it to all the other podcast platforms, like Spreaker and all of that stuff. So I just don't get, I don't know, and I'm looking at my bills and I'm looking at my mortgage and my insurance. This stuff has like tripled in the last 6 years.
So, let me tell you this. Homeowners insurance has just went up, and I guarantee you it's because of this hurricane. Did you get a notice for your homeowners?
I did. Go. It did. It went up another $200 a year.
There you go.
I'm like, why? I still live in the same spot.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they know something we don't.
Yeah. So just let everybody know, like, our shows will still be going on and stuff. And so So Paranormal Paul, he streams through, he uses our StreamYard, and then Brandy, has the show on Wednesday. So between Sunday and Wednesday, we're going to find a different platform to use. We are not going to use StreamYard anymore. So we're kind of like looking out there. If anybody has any ideas, or if you guys use anything that you guys like, let us know. My problem is I got to have at least 6 to 8 admins to be allowed without paying $300 a month.
Right. So, and the minimum is 3. We need a minimum of 3 admins. That's the bare minimum. And that's what I think is crazy. I'm just, I don't know what's happening. I mean, this world is just going out of control, and I know just by, talking to everybody here in chat and other places, it's a hard toll on everybody right now. I mean, it's like when our luxuries now are getting the good food at the grocery store,
Yeah.
Wow.
I used to buy eggs. It was $4.50 a freaking dozen. Since when are eggs $4.50 a dozen?
There's no shortage on eggs, people. There's no shortage.
Nope.
There's plenty of chickens. Plenty of chickens.
Yep. So I don't know. It's just I don't understand. Well, I do understand. It's election time. It's coming up close to the election, and then the hurricane. So it's all excuses to continue to raise it. However, even it'll never go back down.
Yeah. Denise and Chad is talking about copays. Her copays went up, and yes.
Yep. And probably only gets the same coverage. Yeah.
Well. So then here it is. I got to tell you something funny on this too. something about the powers that be in our country. I got a notice in the mail that I needed to sign up for jury duty, right? So I'm, with everything going on with my family, and I'm, running, with, doing stuff for my mom and doing stuff for my brother, and, and then I'm working full time. I mean, I didn't do it. I did to sign up. I got my little postcard in the mail today. It says, this is your second notice. I went, oh, I better do that.
Yeah,
Because I don't want to go to court to explain why I haven't done it, okay?
right.
Just,
Can't afford to.
right. And then I'm thinking, okay, so if I get picked for jury duty, are they going to pay me enough to survive?
No, they
Or are
don't
we
pay
gonna
you
be getting-
diddly. It's next to nothing what they pay you. You won't get paid what your wage is.
Exactly. And you can't work during that time you're on jury duty because you can't mingle with people.
Right.
So it's kind of like, I mean,
Yeah.
they stick it to you, they stick it to you.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
I know.
I don't know. It's interesting what this is all,
So yeah, so I'll probably give them. I'll probably give them the excuse that I don't like anybody anyhow. Everybody's guilty.
Here you go. Look at here. Big money. They pay you $15 a day here for jury duty.
That's what I mean.
That's a
So
slap
I'm just gonna write on mine.
in the
I hate everybody. I just hate I don't. I really don't. But I'm just writing on there. I just hate everybody. Everybody's guilty. So
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree.
I mean, that's not true, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna tell the truth. But jeez.
Yeah. If you get called in for jury duty, yes, I know this person. Yes, I murderers should die. They should all get hung. Yeah. I would say
right.
stuff like that, and that way they won't pick you, whether you believe it or not.
Right. And Werewolf said, does your mom need you to help? And she does. She doesn't drive or anything else anymore.
Mhm.
So yes, it is. And I'm going to put that on there. So they'll be able to know that I can't be gone, every day like that.
Right. And especially
Because, I usually do my shifts. I do my shifts between 4 and 1 and 1:30 every day. So I work like 9.5 hours every day. So I do them early in the morning so I can at least get a couple hours while she's sleeping. So I don't miss that much of the day. But if I have to go in there from like 8 to 4 or 8 to 5 or whatever, that's not going to work out. I mean,
right. And you know what? Here Paul says this, and this, there you go. You need to go in and tell them capital punishment for speeding tickets.
or I should put in there. We need to bring back capital punishment.
Yeah. Yep. We need to bring back the
tell them
ropes.
it'll save on our taxes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, no, I'm just kidding, everybody. Really, don't take me serious.
No, we are kidding.
We are kidding. And and I just have to laugh about it because I mean it's like it's like the financial strain that the powers that be are putting on its people. And all you can do is laugh about it. I mean, you can't cry about it. I mean,
Right.
You're gonna have to pay it because they say the only thing that you do in life is you pay taxes.
I bet if you go in there and you tell them, I saw a Bigfoot, I bet you wouldn't get chosen.
You think so?
Wouldn't be lying, and you wouldn't be lying.
I wouldn't be lying.
Nope.
Or I could say, hey, I have ghosts that live in my house, and they travel with me too.
Yeah, they go to Tennessee.
They would think that I'm absolutely bonkers, and that would not be a lie.
Nope, you're not lying at all.
I mean, honestly, I could do a lie detector test and pass.
Yeah, there you go. You could say about the ghost, and then you can say, and I saw a Bigfoot. End it on that note.
You're absolutely right.
There you
That
go.
is right. But talking about Bigfoot.
Yep.
Now, we're going to talk about Ape Canyon.
Mhm.
Now, I know that this is a pretty much a well-known story. I don't know all the ins and outs and details.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a story that I've dug into real deep about things because, there's a lot of holes that are missing kind of
Yep.
in this story. There's a lot of people who say, hey, this may not have happened.
There is a lot.
Right, that this is just a made up story or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I'll just read you a short, brief overview of it. It's not super long, And then we can get in more in depth because there's a little bit more like, when the Bigfoot was shot, what was going on and stuff like that. So just a brief overview for people who don't know about Ape Canyon and what it was or is. It says in the summer of 1924, a group of gold prospectors stumbled out to the woods, shaking and glassy-eyed to tell of a 7-foot ape-like animal attacking them with boulders. The names were Fred Beck, Gabe Lefevre, John Peterson, Marion Smith, and Smith's son Roy described coming upon guerrilla men near where they had built a small cabin for their gold hunting. They claimed they were 8 miles from Spirit Lake, which is off Mount St. Helens, when they encountered 4 of the giant animals moving through the forest with erect human-like strides. They were covered with long black hair, relating to the descriptions offered by the men. Their ears are about 4 inches long and stick straight up. They have 4 toes, short and stubby. The witnesses estimated each animal weighed about 400 pounds. And then it says, so we'll kind of stop there because these guys were prospectors,
Right.
out doing what they do, trying to make a living, and out in the woods. And they had been there. So I'm doing my homework on this. They had been there for about a week and they had been hearing odd noises.
Yes.
But they didn't, really think anything of it, because they didn't know what Bigfoot was back then,
Right. They'd never seen anything and probably even heard stories at that point.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So back, they needed water. And so the water obviously was outside the cabin and 2 of them, it was Beck and another one, but I don't remember who the other one was. They went outside and about I think it said 100 yards away was a hairy beast standing there looking at them. And Beck shot at it. And apparently it made contact. He said he shot it 3 times, made contact, and the thing fell off into the canyon. Okay. So that's where it comes in with all the bad stuff that happens. And I can show you, actually, I found a picture of Beck. Let me put that up there. With the gun he claims to have used. Hold on. Here it is. With the gun he claims to have used. So Fred Beck with the gun he used at Ape Canyon. Does he look like a hunter to you? Or a prospector?
No. Prospector, yes. Hunter, no.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, hunters come in all shapes and sizes, but
yeah,
seeing him sit there like that with that pew pew, with the pew pew, it just makes me think that he didn't take that shot to do away with it. He took the shot because he was scared.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like, to scare it away, kind of.
Yeah. And they said that, he actually ended up doing 3 shots and ended up supposedly killing it. So.
Well, I mean, if the 3 shots didn't do it, falling off the cliff would have, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, and here's my thinking too. Okay. So some people believe this story, some people don't. I don't know yet. I'm not there yet, but
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not 100%.
Yeah. So, 100 yards, that's far. Don't you think?
It is. It is. I mean, okay. So, just from my own knowledge, hunting rifles, 100 yards is kind of a far shot, but it can be done. It can be done as long as it's sighted in. Like you have, your scope and it's sighted in, and you know exactly what you're doing with it. I mean, it can be done, and with relative ease, should I say? But I didn't see any scope on that man's gun.
Right. Well, Deborah says it's a football field, so
yeah.
Okay. Well, but then think about this too. So he described it with the tall ears. At 100 yards, do you think you're able to see and describe the ears?
Pull up that man's picture again.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, so you see that the man's wearing corrective lenses.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether or not he was wearing them at the time, or if he had them at the time,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to say, because I don't know. But then again, I mean,
I don't know either. I mean,
today hunters rely on all the gadgets to make the shot.
Yeah.
Okay. Back then in 1924, they didn't have all the gadgets. You had the gun. That's all you had.
Right.
So you had to know your weapon. You had to know exactly how it fires, how far you can fire with it. And I mean, it could be possible. I mean, but then again, you got to understand the circumstances. I know that when I would hunt, I would get, my adrenaline would start pumping when something would come in the clearing, you know what I mean? And you're looking at it and your adrenaline starts pumping, but I know what I'm looking at. But this man had no idea what he was looking at. So it was kind of like a shoot first, ask questions later type of thing.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
But at 100 yards, you're talking about, again, across a football field. I wouldn't be able to tell if it had pointy ears.
Yeah, I don't know.
Even with my vision being 20/20 with corrective lenses, I don't know.
Yeah. Randy says here real quick, he says 100 yards is nothing. I do that with peep sights. His weapon looks like a 45-70 lever action. That's a lot of weapon.
Right. But then you're talking about a target that could, I don't know, was it moving?
Very big. Well, and it's very big, as someone stated. It is a huge target. So maybe so.
Right. And it's moving.
Yeah.
Right. Which most hunters are used to their targets moving.
Yeah. So, and then here's another thing. Okay. So then they go back into the cabin, and the cabin, there's 2 beds, and the rest of them have to sleep on the floor. The other 2 have to sleep on the floor. So, and we know this from experience. Like when your adrenaline gets going, you do have an adrenaline dump, and you go to sleep and sleep good. Because, I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, how can they sleep after having that incident? We witnessed that. We know how that can happen.
It happened to me.
And me too.
Yeah, it was just like, you're done, you're out. I mean, after the excitement's over and your heart starts to slow down, your body just says, nope, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah. So I could see how that could happen, So then it started about midnight with rocks being thrown at the cabin. And the cabin didn't have any windows in it. They built it just for the prospecting. So when the sun started going down, it was very dark. They went to sleep. They were actually asleep. And they said that it started about midnight when the rocks started getting thrown at the cabin. Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But honestly, Krista, with our own experience, later on in the evening when things start happening, when everybody's laying down and sleeping, that sounds like normal activity that they would do. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Exactly. And they had decided once, so when they got back to the cabin, they already had talked about, they're done, they're out of there. However, it was dark or getting dark, so they couldn't make it out, at night. They decided to wait until morning to get out of there. So that's why they didn't leave like right then, I don't blame them seeing this creature out there. And then,
I'm not gonna move in the dark. No, I'm not gonna move in the dark. It's dangerous because you're not only dealing with what you think what you were running from. You're also dealing with other apex predators.
Exactly, It
So
says,
I'm not doing that. Mm-mm.
so it says here, and this is Fred's account of what happened. So he says, each of us settled down on his bed and soon fell asleep. About midnight, we were all awakened. Hank, who was sleeping on the floor, was yelling and kicking, but the noise that had awakened us was a tremendous thud against the cabin wall. Some of the chinking had been knocked loose from between the logs and had fell across Hank's chest. He had his rifle in his hand and was waving it back and forth as he kicked and yelled. It says Hank always slept with his gun nearby. It was a Remington automatic. His gun was a 30-30 Winchester. That's what he says.
That would scare me. You know, you're laying there, you're asleep, you start hearing things hit the cabin itself.
Well, you
and then
start
next thing
feeling
you know,
it. It's the chinking from the log starts falling in on you. Like, that'd be kind of freaking me out.
yeah, especially because you don't know if the integrity of the building will stand.
Right.
You know, considering like, what if they pick up a bigger boulder, rock? What if they pick up a bigger one? Is this cabin going to hold?
Yeah.
So I could see where they would be terrified at this point.
Yeah. Okay. So then here is where the attack actually starts. It says, I helped get the chinking off of him and he jumped to his feet. Then we heard a great commotion outside. It sounded like a great number of feet trampling and rattling over a pile of our unused shapes. We grabbed our guns. Hank squinted through the space left by the chinking. By actual count, we saw only 3 of these creatures together at one time, but it sounded like there were many more.
Well, I mean, you're talking about the sheer size of them. It would probably sound like a whole herd, you know.
Yeah.
And Werewolf in chat asked, what year was this? It was 1924.
Yes, sir. Yep. And then it says, here it says, most accounts tell of giant boulders being hurled against the cabin, and some say even fell through the roof, but this was not quite the case. There were very few rocks around in that area. It is true that many smaller ones were hurled at the cabin, but they did not break through the roof, but hit with a bang and rolled off. Some did fall through the chimney of the fireplace. Some accounts state that he was hit in the head by a rock and knocked unconscious. That was not true, and that's Fred telling his story.
Okay.
So it sounds like, you know, because the original Ape Canyon, I had heard it was like big boulders, you know, that was being thrown. So I had heard that.
Right. Well, you tell a story and then somebody else retells it, and it has different points of interest in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I said, but still, if you're picking up any decent sized rock and with the force that they were throwing it, and stuff is falling on them from the building itself. Mm-hmm. Just imagine what they could do. What if they decided to compound on the thing, right? Or rip it apart, or you know.
Yeah. Mm-mm. So here's a little more to it. It says the only time we shot our guns that evening was when the creatures were attacking our cabin. When they would quiet down for a few minutes, we would quit shooting. I told the rest of the party that maybe if they saw we were only shooting when they attacked, they might realize we were only defending ourselves. We could have had clear shots at them through the opening left by the chinking had we chosen to shoot. We did shoot, however, when they climbed up on our roof. We shot round after round through the roof. We had to brace the huge logged door with a long pole taken from the bunk bed. The creatures were pushing against it, and the whole door vibrated from the impact. We responded by firing many more rounds through the door. They pushed against the walls of the cabin as if trying to push the cabin over, but this was pretty much an impossibility. As previously stated, the cabin was a sturdy made building. Hank and I did most of the shooting. The rest of the party crowded into the far end of the cabin, guns in their hands. One had a pistol, which is still in my family's possession. The others clutched their rifles. They seemed stunned and incredulous. I could imagine that. I mean, I could see where people, like, they would be freaked out. Like, you got your two fighting, and everybody's different. So you can't really say how we would act. Like, oh, I'm going to, be Rambo and go shoot them. You don't know how you would react. You know?
No. Mm-hmm. But I I honestly don't think I would have shot through the building itself either.
Well, I think they were shooting at them because they were like trying to come through the door.
Right.
Trying to get them away. So they were only shooting when they were under attack.
True. Yeah, and I get that point. I get that, but again, we're talking about the integrity. What about the door? I mean, you put so many holes through a door. Well, it's not going to be a door anymore.
That's true.
But why, with this story, I'm wondering why, if there's no windows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, were there like maybe like little slats in between the wood where you could see outside? I mean,
well, here it says the attack continued the remainder of the night with only short intervals between. A most profound and frightening experience occurred when one of the creatures, being close to the cabin, reached an arm through the chinking space and seized one of our axes by the handle, a much written incident and a true one. Before the thing could pull the axe out, I swiftly turned the head of the axe upright so that it caught it on the logs, and at the same time, Hank shot, barely missing my hand. The creature let it go, and I pulled the handle back in, and put the axe in a safe place.
Well, he's telling that part like what they think it was. They're like the creature knew what it was grabbing a hold of. You know what I mean? That creature probably did have no idea what it was grabbing a hold of. All it knew it had something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking along those lines. It didn't know what it had a hold of. It just grabbed something, whatever it could grab.
I believe that too. I definitely believe that too. So more of it is here. So it wasn't long before they saw another one of the ape-like creatures. Okay, so it ended. The attack ended just before daylight. And then soon it was light enough to see, we cautiously came out of the cabin, is what they said. And it said it wasn't long before I saw one of the ape-like creatures standing about 80 yards away near the edge of Ape Canyon. And then he said he shot at it and it toppled over the cliff down into the gorge some 400 feet below. That's on their way out. I hadn't heard that.
Read that again, that last little part. It
says it was not long before I saw one of the ape-like creatures standing about 80 yards away near the edge of Ape Canyon. I shot 3 times and it toppled over the cliff down into the gorge some 400 feet below. So that's 2.
So okay. So he was saying this whole time that they were only firing when they were being attacked on.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, this creature was 80 yards away and he just decides to pop off 3 shots.
Right.
When the thing wasn't there attacking.
Mm-hmm.
Why would he do that? I mean, because he said that there were like 2 more out there. So why would you?
Mm-hmm.
That's like getting your butt kicked in a fight and then starting another fight when you're going to get your butt kicked again.
Right. I get you. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Me either. Yeah, I don't understand that either. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, some people believe it's true. Some people believe it's not. I don't know. I
just don't know why if the creatures were away, why he would fire upon them. It's kind of like, again, like I said, starting a fight. It's like, hey, we're not finished fighting. We're going to pop off some more shots here. So come, it's like continuing the fight after it's over.
Exactly. So I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is interesting. It is interesting because I mean it's kind of going, it's contradicting what they were trying to do, you know.
Yep. Well, okay. So then they get out of there and they go back, and the U.S. Forest Service decided to investigate this. And its rangers J.H. Huffman and William Welch hiked into the forest with Beck, who took them to the cliff where he said the wounded ape man fell. And it says, one of the rangers scrambled down the supposedly inaccessible canyon and found nothing. Beck and the rangers continued on to the prospector's cabin, and Beck pointed out the large stones that had been used in the attack. See, that's where it goes back and says that, okay, he didn't call them boulders. He just said large stones, so we'll give him that.
I mean, what does he consider large stones?
Right.
I mean, are we talking like head-sized stones? I mean,
right.
But he's talking about a place that didn't have very many stones. So how many stones can they throw the size of your head if there's not very many around, you know, because they were talking about, they kept hitting. All right, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm like,
right. Right. And it says Beck and the rangers continued on to the prospector's cabin, and Beck pointed out the large stones that had been used in the attack. Huffman and Welch weren't impressed, concluding that the miners had probably placed the large stones themselves. So, and then I guess apparently there was a 14-inch long footprint found near the cabin. And Huffman says that they created an imprint on the ground using their knuckles and the palm of his right hand. They were made that way. So I don't know. And like little Patty says here, you know, I don't understand how he could turn the axe handle if the creature had a hold of the handle. I don't understand either. And like I said, that's why we're talking about this, because a lot of people believe it's fact. It really happened. Some people don't. There's a lot of holes to the story. And that's, you know, basically what we're here discussing with all of you guys, you know?
Okay. I'm just going to go back to this, you know, I'm going to say, okay, it's like some movies, you know, where the guy gets, let's just say he gets hurt by a woman, right? He gets beat up by a woman and he's all bloody, black eyes. And then he runs into his friends and they're like, gosh, who got a hold of you? You know? And he's like, oh, I'm fine. You should have seen the other 5 guys. You know what I mean? It's kind of like embellishing a story. Maybe he had the encounter, you know, but he's not going to sit there and say, well, you know, we got scared. We were super scared out of our wits, you know, and he's not going to say all that. So he had to make up some elaborate story to make it all come together.
Right.
I mean,
I don't know.
But, you know, hey, so they searched the canyon where this thing supposedly fell, right?
Yep.
They didn't find it. Now, we had this discussion. Actually, I think we had it on last night. Okay, so if it was Bigfoot, all right, we talk about why are we not finding bones or, you know, like any skeletal remains or anything like that of Bigfoot and blah, blah, blah. Well, we don't know exactly what Bigfoot does with their own dead, okay? They may drag them off. They may bury them. In other instances, if they go back like tribal kind of native things, maybe they consumed him. Right. You know, maybe they consume the carcasses. That way they can, first of all, leave no trace. Second of all, you know, especially when you get into folklore and Native American things, you know, it's kind of like the ancestral type of deal. Some people share, I'm trying to say this politely. They'll share like the heart of an animal because that is supposed to give them strength and courage and blah, blah, blah. Well, maybe they do that to gain the strength of their ancestors or, you know, whomever. I don't know. I mean, there's a whole gap right there of because we don't know. There are no experts, of course, because we don't know what they do with, you know, their dead. You know, a lot of animals, of course, will find the deepest, darkest place to go pass away. So far away from everybody. But what would they do in a case like this?
Right.
I don't know. See, this is where I have a problem because I don't know. I mean, if anybody has any ideas, I mean, because that's all they are is ideas, theories. That's all we have. That's all we have on that. And like I said,
Amy makes a good point here really quick. She says, I'm thinking about the generation of men, the remoteness of the location, and what would be the payoff for a hoax like that. I bet it'd be a pretty good payoff. What do you think?
Yeah. Or either that, these big burly men out there in the wilderness are not going to sit there and say, oh, yeah, well, this hairy thing was just walking around the cabin. So we were shooting through the doors and we were scared, to death of it. They don't want to appear like they're weak. So they're going to make a story up. It's called the big fish tale. Yeah.
Little Patty says, I think he embellished the story. And here's another thing. So, okay, they're taking the U.S. Forestry Service guys back to the cabin, right?
Right.
So what they don't talk about is, okay, if that story is true and it happened that way, that place would be riddled with bullet holes. They don't.
It would have been. There would have been more than just one footprint. There would have been. The whole place would have been trampled. You would have been able to find hundreds of footprints that would have been easy to see. Not just one. You know what I mean? Not just one. Several. Right. I mean, they would be all over that thing. Where they came out of the tree line into where they were at and all around the cabin. And I mean, there would have been more evidence.
I think so too.
Of big creatures being there.
Do you think maybe, and I'm not saying that the man is lying. I'm not.
No.
This out, but do you think he was just looking for attention possibly? But then you got to think, even like today, a lot of people don't speak out about their encounters because of the ridicule they get today. Could you imagine how it would have been back then in 1924, the ridicule? So I don't know.
My thoughts on this are that he had an encounter. I believe he had an encounter, but he's not going to tell the truth about everything that happened. Mm-hmm. He's not going to say, hey, we were scared and just blowing holes in our cabin. We heard this thing kind of walking around. So we blow holes in the wall because we were scared. They're not going to say that.
Right.
I believe they had an encounter.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't think all that happened.
I do too. I definitely believe that.
What do they call those? Is anybody in chat know? Is something devil? They call them the something that, I don't know if they call it the hairy devil or. I can't remember the name that they used to use for those, especially in that area.
Devil monkey, like?
Huh?
Like a devil monkey or something?
I think it was something like that. I can't remember what exactly it was, but it was something. So they
Mountain devils.
Mountain devils. Thank you. I knew it was something devil. Mm-hmm. So they knew something like that existed up there, I think. It just got close and they got scared.
Right. Yeah.
And it's kind of like you don't want people to perceive that you had an underwear changing moment. You don't want to let people know that. You want people to believe I was the tough person. And I did this, and this. This is what I did.
Right.
I don't want to lose face over this because I don't want to tell everybody that we were scared.
Right. What does someone say here? Or Moon says, he crapped his pants and hid under the only cot. That's just how he remembers it. There you go.
Okay. Well, okay. I wasn't saying that, but when I say underwear changing moment, that is exactly what I mean. I mean, he doesn't want to say that to everybody because he doesn't look like a huge man.
No,
he doesn't look like, I mean, he looks like your average prospector out there. doing the thing, trying to find stuff, trying to make money.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So then there is there's an Indian legend. So let's talk about what it might have been. Was it a Bigfoot or was it something different? Because if you remember right, his claim was it had 4 toes.
Okay. So, you and I have talked about this before. And if the story is true, 100% true, I do not think it was Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a gugway.
Yeah.
I think.
I would agree with you. Quinn, sorry. Now, instead of a cat tonight, we have the dog.
Oh.
Yeah. He's hitting on me, wanting me to pet him, but it's not a petting moment right now.
Well, give him some pets. Give him some pets. Give him some loves.
I don't know. My animal's trying to get on here, but they work away.
They need their 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah, exactly. Here's what it says about the Indian legend. It says, forestry employees have investigated many reports of strange creatures. According to Indian legend, the apes were the ferocious Celtic Indians, a band of renegades, much like giant apes in appearance, who lived like wild animals in the secluded caves of the Cascades.
Okay. So we know how some Native American tribes will wear pelts. They'll wear wolf heads, things like that. Maybe that these were Native Americans dressed in something, pelts of some sort. Because,
But Native Americans, my thing is, I'm going back to the 4 toes.
You never know. It depends on what kind of shoes they've got on. Whatever the bottom soles of whatever, I wouldn't say shoes, whatever they're wearing on their feet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's more here. It says the first recorded encounter of the apes with white men was in 1924. And it was the group of prospectors that rushed into Kelso to report that a group of great ape-like creatures had attacked them in the middle of the night, which is what we were talking about. So that's the first one, they said. So I don't know. And then they're saying that there came, a great ape hunt of 1924. Law enforcement officers and a flock of newspapermen made up a posse that went into the area. The armed searchers fired at anything that moved, as the report went. They returned to tell of finding a huge footprints, but no apes.
Well, that's something. Well, huge footprints. Now, see, this is, I don't know. I don't, because the reports that are coming in, I would like to, get into some of those reports if they were ever documented.
Yeah.
Because back in that day, it's like, hey, Ted, I got this bear on my property, blah, blah, blah. It's killing off everything. I know you're a police officer. Can you come out and get it? Mm-hmm. Now, they wouldn't write that stuff down. They'd be like, oh, I'm going out to Ted's place today. He said he's got a bear. Yeah. They wouldn't write that stuff down. They wouldn't document any of that stuff like they do today.
Yeah. And then, Head Trip says that's only 100 years ago. Where did the ape men go? Did they kill them all? Good question.
Yeah. Right. And what pointy ears does not sound like Bigfoot.
No.
Does not.
And then, and the 4 toes theory throws a curveball. Absolutely, it does.
Right. It does. Now,
Werewolf makes a good point. Need the weather information. Yeah. Yeah. That'd been nice to have.
Okay. So could it have been, how family generations, they sometimes have a defect, like a birth defect, and it carries on generation to generation. Okay, cats do too. Okay, so we have a six-toed cat.
That's true.
You know, maybe that was their genetic line that said, "Hey, it's got 4 toes instead of 5."
You know, you're right on that, because and even like the cats, I know, like there's the Munchkin cats that their legs are short and stubby. So
Exactly.
you're right.
Exactly. So I
Yeah.
mean, it could be that particular bloodline that had 4 toes.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
86 says pointy eyes says dogman to me.
it
Possibly.
does to me too.
Mm-hmm.
But they would have reported more of a dog-like figure versus an ape-like figure, is what I'm thinking. But then again, I mean, you're talking about 80 yards in the dark or 100 yards in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about all that. So I don't think they knew really what they were looking at.
Yeah. John says a dogman mix. 86 says a cat man. You know, dogman. I don't know.
I mean, hell, could it have been a werebear? We don't know.
A werebear?
Yeah, a bit of werebear.
Is that
That's all
like a
I
werebear?
Yeah. Kind of like a werewolf, but a werebear. I don't know. I mean, could we, could we be talking skinwalkers? I mean, could we be talking something else besides something physical?
Mm-hmm.
That is a possibility.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know. These stories, I love them. Don't get me wrong. I love these stories. I find them fascinating, and I love to hear them. But when I sit down and I try to put the science to the story, it doesn't work.
Right.
It just doesn't work.
I'm like you. I do believe that they had an encounter, and I think that they had a bad encounter. Do I think some of it was embellished? I do. But I do believe that the actual thing happened. I do. Just some of his story doesn't add up.
Right, because I mean, it's just like, well, when they went out there to go over what had happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
They say that it looked like that they had placed the rocks there, that they're not seeing the damage.
Yeah, well, then he says that it didn't happen with boulders, but now we have large rocks. So what your definition of large rocks and my definition of large rocks could be totally different.
Right. Now, if you're saying a rock, okay, I'm thinking about something the size of your head. Okay, that's a large rock to me. Anything larger than that, I would start to say, okay, boulder. Because that gets pretty large.
Yeah.
Oh,
I would agree. Roger Blair says, man, bear, pig, maybe.
maybe. We talked about it was a dog-toed man. There was an old story that we were reading about the Huska Castle in Russia, and they were talking about a thing that they were seeing that had it was like part dog, part frog, and part human something. And I'm like, I don't know, never seen that. I don't even know what to call that. So we're still trying to figure out names of what to call that one. We don't know. We're going to come up with a cool name because they didn't have a cool name for it.
Well, since all this happened, and I don't know how long after the incident, that the cabin burnt, but they don't know what from.
Oh, well, if you're out of the woods, that could have been from anything. For number one, it could have been, they did it themselves to cover up from people going out there and debunking everything that they had said, right?
Yeah.
Number two, lightning is not your friend. It could start anywhere. I mean, especially if it was in trees. Because we know that wood is a conductor, and I mean, it could bring the lightning for sure. But my bet is that somebody had done it.
There's something else I find interesting. Okay. All right. And as I'm reading more into this, so you got to think 1924. All right. I'm going to redo this. You give me your 2 cents. Now, keep in mind the year. So this is coming from Mr. Beck again. This is his story on after the effects. So he said, I told you about the attack, and now I want to go into the background and tell a little bit concerning our activities. They will be colorful, and from them emerge a spiritual and metaphysical understanding of the case. It says, first of all, I hope this does not discourage too much of those interested souls who are on here looking and trying to solve the mystery of the abdominal snowman. If someone captured one, I would have to swallow most of the content in this. And he wrote a book in this book. And that's what I'm making pieces out of. For I'm about to make a bold statement. No one will ever capture one, and no one will ever kill one. In other words, present to the world a living one in a cage, or find a dead body of one to be examined by science. I know there are stories that some have been captured but got away, so they will always get away. I say this confident by the evidence of my experiences, things that I have not before revealed to the public, and I also say it from the knowledge gained on the subject matter. I will reveal thoroughly what I know them to be. First of all, I will say that they are not entirely of this world. I know the reaction we experienced is those being attacked out in the cabin impressed many with the concept of great ape-like men dwelling in the mountains. And I can say that we genuinely fought and were quite fearful, and we were glad to get out of the mountains. But I was, for one, always conscious that we were dealing with supernatural beings, and I know the other members of the party all felt the same. The events leading up to the ape episode were filled with a psychic element. Since a young man, I had always been clairvoyant. Just as a boy, I was in the pasture playing with my bean shooter. I had bought it with some long-earned coins. It had a twisted wire handle. I lost it and I was crying. A kindly woman came up to me and put her arms around me. I felt warm all over. Little boy, she said, don't cry. Go home and you will find your bean shooter there. I went home and found it. And as far as I know, as I knew it then, it was the same one. But years later, I found the one I lost. It was another weather beaten and the rubber was rotten. So in other words, he's saying that he's psychic and that they believe, which back in 1924, you got to think about this, guys. That was like taboo. They put people in these asylums.
Yes, they did.
Psychic.
Yes, they did.
Like that.
Now,
so,
did he? Okay. So he released that. He released the story. Does it say when he released that statement in particular?
I don't see where it says that.
I mean, because if he said that like in the 1950s, they'd have probably thought he was very strange. They wouldn't put him in an asylum, but they would think that he was strange. So,
yeah. So they had been at that area for 6 years working off and on, which I find.
So they had to have seen something before.
Well, he's talking about manifesting. Yeah. Like they're manifesting, says, the picture I'm trying to paint for you is a picture of manifestation. He says, we have had many a high nature the 6 years we spent in the Mount St. Helens area. Of course, lower or the grosser manifestations were in the appearing of these hairy creatures called abdominal snowmen, also called hairy apes, Bigfoot, and Sasquatch, according to the region they are seen in. I believe they have always existed, although our encounter with them in 1924 was the first major report of anyone coming into contact with them. So now he's talking about manifesting them. He's losing his credibility, and I believe in
as the story goes, right? But so here's this. So I'm thinking okay. This is very hard, very difficult for me because I understand you can manifest things. I get it. But they're talking about these things as if they're flesh and blood.
Mhm.
That's what they're saying. They're flesh and blood. So I'm thinking.
Listen to this sentence first here. It says, for 6 years, all had been peaceful. We were simple men and hardworking men, and an aura of good or spiritual power surrounded us. We had seen tracks, but the makers of them had left us alone. No one was worried about the tracks as regarding any threat to our safety.
No, what? Okay, so
why did he shoot at it at first? That makes no sense.
Right. But with this being said, what if they ran across some other type of apex predator? What if it was a bear or something else, and they didn't quite know how to identify it at 100 yards? Let's just say that. They couldn't identify it at 100 yards because, again, it was dark. All right, it's dark outside.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of manifesting it physically, they manifested it mentally in their minds.
Maybe, yeah.
You know, that there is no way this could have been a bear. This was, you know, this mountain devil. This is what it was. It was the mountain devil. And even though it could have been a bear, they would never tell you anything different.
Yeah.
You know, it's possible because, like I said, it was dark. How you know, you're talking about a forested area. At 100 yards in a forested area, are you really going to tell me it's got pointed ears? How are you going to know? I was looking at something 20 feet, and I was trying to determine my whole life choices at that point because I didn't know what I was looking at.
Right.
20 feet.
Yeah. Okay. So now he's talking about more about this here. He's talking about here in tree knocks. Excuse me. Says there are a couple of experiences which shed some light or evidence on the psychic nature of the abdominal snowman. The same thudding, howling, thumping noise we heard at night preceding the attack, we also heard in broad daylight, although not nearly so loud. One of our party was a little irritated with me. On our excursions, he usually led the way, and I followed a little behind the others. We kept hearing that sound, and occasionally he would turn around and would say, "What's that?" After 6 or 8 times of him doing this, and after a few general discussions about the noise, he quickly turned around one more time and eyed me and said, "By golly, boys, it's not Fred making all that noise after all." But he decided to give it a double check. He made an excuse and wandered away from camp. When he came back, he said, "Now I'm certain it's none of us. I walked for half an hour, and everywhere I went, I heard it. Sounds like there's a hollow drum in the earth somewhere, and something was hitting it." Sounds like tree knocks to me. So then now we go back. Okay, now what is it?
I'm just sitting here, and by golly, that would not be something I would use. That would be not a term I would use. By golly.
1924, by golly, it was.
Right. I would be using other words.
Yeah, me too.
But, you know, I don't think that, well, I mean, it could be possible, but I don't think that a Bigfoot would be following you around just knocking on trees. So, you know, I think that it would be making other sounds, and it would be throwing stuff, and it would be, you know, trying to get your attention is what it's trying to do.
Well, here's what it says too. It says, there is no doubt in my mind that these beings were present and observing us, but they had not yet appeared in physical form. Another very striking experience, which shows that they cannot be natural beings with natural bodies. It was before we made our cabin, and we were staying in a tent then. It says the tent was a little below a little cone-shaped mountain called Pumi Butte. A little creek flowed nearby, and there was a moist sandbar about an acre in area. We would go there and wash our cooking utensils and bring our drinking water back. Early one morning, Hank came back to the tent. He was rather excited. He led us to the moist sandbar and took us almost to the center. There in the center of the sandbar were 2 huge tracks about 4 inches deep. There was not another track on that sandbar. In other words, he's saying that it disappeared. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks for being a member for 4 months. We do appreciate you and everything. Thank you. See, but why would it have to disappear? Especially when you're talking about in the middle of nowhere. There's no people, there's nothing. It would have no reason
Mm-hmm.
to disappear.
Right. Right. So 86 asked, was the sound following them as they were walking? I think it was.
It was. That's what it said. Yeah, it said everywhere he went that he could hear. It said that he could. I'll speak in a minute. That he could hear the tree knocking. That's what I said. I mean, why would that be a constant? That's kind of like a terrorist kind of tactic, like putting the fear factor into somebody. Just keep beating on trees and following them around. When they can't see you.
Well, my thing is, I had always heard it as flesh and blood. Ape Canyon, the flesh and blood thing, and I found this article here that this Fred had wrote, and I'm like, wow, that's interesting. I was deep diving into this. Back then they didn't talk about like the flesh and blood thing. It was 1924, literally 100 years ago.
I don't know. I don't know. Because I would like to know when his attitude changed. Because why didn't his metaphysical part or the spiritual side of it not appear in the original report? Why did he not tell, hey, we manifested these things, or hey, all this? Why did he not do that? Is this something that he had done years later and reflected back on, trying to wrap his head around his own story?
Yeah. So here's what they said when they found the tracks in the sand. It says, there we were standing in the middle of the sandbar, and not one of us could conceive any earthly thing taking steps 160 feet long. So the stride, I guess, 160 feet long. No human being could have made these tracks, Hank said, and there's only one way they could have been made. Something dropped from the sky and went back up.
See, it just sounds like he's trying to make sense of his own story.
Maybe, I don't know.
When sometimes, when these things happen, and we know they do, we know tracks end up going nowhere sometimes, and we can't explain it. But you don't have to put an explanation to something you can't explain.
Right.
You don't have to say, I don't know what happened, man. There's tracks there, and then they were there, and then they just stopped. I have no idea. You tell me, because I don't know. And that's all you have to do with that. You don't have to say, well, it dropped from the sky and blah. That's just saying way too much. That's why I say I'm thinking later. He didn't recant the story,
right?
But he's trying to put something to it, because maybe he was taking a lot of flack for the holes in the story.
Yeah, and there's a lot more on this, and people are interested in reading this. It's not super long, but I can drop the link. I can put it on our Blondes and Booze page. If anybody's interested, they can go on our Facebook page and click on the link and see where.
Yeah, we got do that. Do that, because
everybody can kind of read it. Yeah,
I do that.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll drop the link where I found this information. I just find it interesting, though. Like, you just don't hear that stuff like back then, like, flesh and blood, or,
Right. So thanks, Josh. We appreciate that. We got 5 more booze now. We got 5 more booze.
5 more booze. Awesome.
That's right. So I'm, like I said, I'm fascinated with the story.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
I am fascinated with the story, but
86 says there's a Bigfoot UFO connection. Maybe it was beamed up. Actually, 86, they start talking about the UFO thing. He does start talking about that. So I don't know. I just never put this part with Ape Canyon. It was just
because it was never reported like that, Krista. Right. I mean, it was never reported like that. This had to have come years later.
And this is supposedly this guy that was a survivor, like wrote this. So,
Well, yeah. Okay. So this happened in 1924, correct? Okay. So the Roswell crash happened in 1947.
mhm,
So if he came with this story later,
mhm,
you know, what talking about the spiritual side of it or, you know,
right,
aliens or whatever, was it after 1947?
right. Well,
I
yeah,
mean, they're not going to know about all the other crashes that we know about because we dig into this and we hear the stories. But I mean, 1947 was the big Roswell crash. They did have it on the black and white TV. I mean, they talked about it.
yeah,
So, I mean, if he came years later about it,
mhm,
maybe he's, like I said, trying to make sense of the story he told. Maybe he's trying to put connections somewhere where there isn't any, or there is. I mean, who knows? I mean, again, who knows?
yeah,
But I mean, you're
yeah.
talking about what, 23 years later? It's possible.
That's what I'm saying. It's crazy.
I mean, 23 years later. I mean, after you figure out, hey, Roswell, aliens. Hey, well, maybe it was aliens.
Yeah.
Up there on the mountain.
Right, right. Yep. So when you guys get off the show here, guys, I did, if you go to Blondes and Booze Facebook page, I have it pinned there, the link that all this information came from, a lot of this information. I found it on several.
Right.
But when I got to this about the metaphysics part, I was like, oh boy, that's something new.
Right. Well, because, you know, the things that I've seen on YouTube over the years or, you know, anything like that, the documentaries and stuff, they don't really talk about what we're talking about, his later analysis of what really happened. You know, they don't really talk about that stuff. They talk about all, you know, what had happened. They talk about the main story and that's all you get. They're not talking about what he had said later because, you know, that would make that man sound a little cuckoo.
Yeah. Well, back then, like I said, like we just said, like they put you in asylums if you said you talked to the dead or, you know, things like that. You know,
right. Because this man,
you were a candidate for a lobotomy. Just saying, you know?
Yeah, because this man was saying, hey, you know, I've seen the pointy ears. Again, I don't know how. Okay. But if you could see the pointy ears, could you tell me if it had a conical head or it did not have a conical head? Can you tell me? Can you tell me anything else? Because if you could see those ears, you could see the shape of the head.
Well, and colors too, you know, like were they all the same color? Were they, you know,
Well, it was dark. It was dark.
Yeah.
You know, but then again, if you could see pointy ears at 100 yards.
Yeah. Where it says, I'm going with the first story, where the other statements for Miss Grew. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, that's the only thing you can go to. I would go on the statements of everybody that was there versus just his alone.
Yeah.
Because
I do believe Ape Canyon happened. I do. Now,
I do believe something happened.
Stuff, you know.
Yes. You know, and it's we talk about this a lot too, Krista, but you know, we do believe things happen to people. We do. But is it happening physically or is it happening mentally?
Right.
You know, again, putting themselves into a frenzy and they see a bear and then, you know, it's only a small black bear, but next thing you know, it's a 10-foot grizzly. You know what I'm saying? I mean, right. Are they thinking that these things are more than what they were?
Mm-hmm.
You know, or one says, hey, all this happened, and the other one's going, yeah, that happened. Yeah, what he said.
Right.
You know, they're just going along with the main story.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's hard. But
right.
So you and I also know that you and I could look at one thing or hear one thing, but it'll sound or look different to each of us.
That's true.
But all these guys are saying exactly the same thing. It looked just like this. It did exactly this. It did this. Mm-hmm. Nobody's remembering anything different. And that's kind of weird to me because there's always something different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the main story may be the same, but there's like little details that may be just a tad bit different.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just crazy, isn't it?
It is. It is. But I love the story. I love
I do
the
too.
story.
I'm with you, like, because I like, you know, as everybody knows, Brandy and I like the spooky stuff. And to me,
Yeah,
that's spooky, to have these
it
creatures
is.
try to get into, your cabin and, whatever. That's spooky. That's scary stuff to me. So
That is scary stuff.
I've been fascinated with the story. And then I read all this other stuff. I'm like, wow, I don't know if I
Right.
believe it or not.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
I don't know. Like I said, I can't, because there's a lot of discrepancies or holes in the story. Um, but it's a great story.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I mean, it is a good story. I love it. I mean,
Mhm.
it's a great story, and he told it, and
Yep, that's why I thought, well, this would be fun to do a deep dive into this whole encounter, this whole, you hear about it. I've heard about it for years. It's kind of a, I guess his encounter is almost a disappointment.
right, right. Well, see, I used to love a story. I used to love a story that my grandfather, he's passed away many, many, many years now. And it was my dad's dad. Anyway, and he was in the Navy, and he was
Mhm.
talking about being out in the Bermuda Triangle. And he said he watched a ship go completely under the water and then pop back up. Now, these are, the big ships, and talking about that, it was swallowed up by the ocean.
No way.
Right. I love the story. I mean, to sit and listen to him tell it, I love the story. I did. I really loved it. But I'm going to tell you, probably what happened is probably they were on the other ship. They were on another ship, and a wave got in between them and came up. One ship went down, but you could see like a little bit of the ship in it, and it was just like you seen the ship through the wave, because you could see a little bit, maybe the lights or whatever. But I don't think it went under the water. I think a wave it went down as a big wave came up, and it
Probably.
just fell on this side of it and it came down. I think that's what happened. I would
Yeah.
never tell him that. I would never tell him that. I never did. I
Yeah.
think that's what happened. But he could tell you that ship went under the water.
Yeah.
And I just love those stories. I just do. I just dig those stories. I'm like, tell me more. Tell me more. What happened?
Well, if you look here, Werewolf says, I have seen destroyers go mostly under.
See, and that's what I'm talking about. But they don't go completely close. But it's just it just depends on the size of the wave and how far they're going into that wave.
Yeah.
But he said it went completely under and came out. I don't think that happened.
Right.
Because I tried to look it up years later and I didn't find anything on it. Because you'd think somebody would have said something, but I didn't find it.
Yeah.
And but like I said, I love those stories, but I can't wrap my head around that exactly. And I
No,
know things happen weird in the Bermuda Triangle. Hell, we've talked about the Alaskan Triangle. There's more triangles all over the world, where weird things are happening we cannot explain.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So now the cat had to make her appearance. So I've got the dog sitting here and the cat. So
yeah, I see the cat right there.
yeah. Finally, she woke up.
It's like, hello, kitty, kitty. Like,
Yeah.
kitty, 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 kitty.
She always makes appearance on BMR show whenever, on Tuesday nights when I co-host with him. She's always on there. And tonight she's hanging with the dog. They're both in here. So.
Oh, well, isn't that cute? Isn't that cute? Well, the cat and the dogs are locked out of my room, so they're not allowed in here.
Yeah. I got
They like to hide under my bed, and I can't get under there to get them out. So I don't allow them in here.
Hide under your bed.
Yeah, they get under there. Yeah, they get under there and they, play around with, I don't know, whatever they find. I mean, it could be a bottle cap or something they find. Who knows?
I got too
Who
much
knows
crap
what they
under
find?
my bed, man. I got like boxes of storage stuff, and yeah, they can't get under my bed.
Right. I don't know. But but like I said, I believe they had an encounter.
I do too.
With what? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
With something aggressive? Absolutely something aggressive.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was as aggressive as it was scary. Right. I guess. I mean, they made it sound like it was just going to rip them apart, and it wasn't. I mean,
And we talked about like this guy's story. Was it consistent? And you don't hear of anybody else, any of the other guys telling their encounter. What they've seen. And you and I both know Martin Groves very well, personal friend, and his story never changes. It's legit. There's no doubt in my mind that happened to him. So I guess, my point being is that, this guy, there's too many contradicting things that he's saying.
Right. Because the other guys are just like, yeah, what he said. And they're leaving it at that. They're not coming forward and saying that. But then again,
then he talks about, like no boulders, but then they only shot when they were, being threatened. Well, then he shoots it and it's just standing there,
Right. Like if it is moving away from the area and then you open fire on it after you had said you would only fire on it because they were attacking. Wait.
Right. So to me, his story has holes in it. That's my point I'm making. Where like Martin Groves' encounter, there's no holes in his. None.
No.
And so like I wholeheartedly believe Martin. But this one here with Ape Canyon, I'm not so sure I believe everything this guy is saying.
Well, yeah, especially because the next part of it, another article, he's saying that he's psychic, basically.
Right.
And that he manifested these things.
Yeah.
I mean, because, if you're talking about manifesting, hello, Caddy. I mean, what if he manifested demons?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
So what if it wasn't a flesh and blood thing?
Right. No, I hear you.
Oh gosh.
What does everybody else think in chat? Let us know what you guys think.
Yeah, let us know. Leave a comment after the show and let us know what you think. Do you think this happened, or how do you think it happened, or what do you think it really was?
Right.
Because I really want to know. Like I said, I like the story, but I can't. Yeah. I mean, first of all, it's flesh and blood. The next thing you know, it's a spirit. I come on, tell me something. Tell me something that I can believe.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's just crazy. Anyway, that was fun. That was an interesting topic. I've been looking forward to doing this all week just because of this extra added info.
Because all we hear is the story, the regular. Hey, the thing attacked them. The things attacked them, and then he killed it.
Right.
But now then you add in all this stuff about, oh yeah, well I'm psychic and I have premonitions and I do this and I do that, and then you're like, okay, it's not that I don't believe you, but how come you didn't say this before? Why didn't you say, hey, I think we manifested these things? Because it would have been a whole different story, and it may not have been called Ape Canyon. You know what I mean? It may have been something else. And then, when they called them mountain devils, that kind of changed my mind a little bit too, because that doesn't sound like a name that you would give like an ape humanoid looking creature. Right. That sounds like something else.
I would agree.
So
I agree with you. Yeah. So anyway, it just boggles my mind.
I know. Like I said, I love the story. And like I said, I think they had an encounter. I just don't know with what and to what extent, because like I said, there's a lot, we talked about it.
There's a lot of holes.
It contradicts itself about what he was really trying to do. You know what I mean?
Yep. And you know what? He could have been that person in there sitting in there crapping his pants and sitting in the corner. Maybe he wasn't the one that had the gun and shooting,
Right. And I mean, and the way he described about the thing reaching in and grabbing a hold of that axe, like I said, I think that creature just reached in and grabbed something. It knew it had something and was just trying to pull it out. That's, that's what I think.
Did it? Was that part of the embellished part? Did it grab anything?
Yeah, because it makes it sound like that it had every intention of taking that axe out and using it, because I understand that if it were Bigfoot, that they're very intelligent and that, hey, maybe they had been around all these years, watched them. They knew how to use that axe.
Yeah.
Maybe it was going to use the axe on their cabin. Mm-hmm. It was wood. It watched them for years using this axe. Why would it not know how to use it? But he made it sound like that it was going to use it on him.
Right.
And that's where I'm like, now wait. Maybe you had food in there. Maybe it was hungry. Maybe it was trying to get the food and you weren't handing it out. Because we talk about gifting, this whole thing, and how the Sasquatch can get a little upset if you gift, and then all of a sudden you quit gifting.
Yeah.
Then they're all up in your business going, hey, where's my food?
And that's the thing too, as far as gifting goes, what are your views? I don't believe people should gift food. Now, if you gift, like items, things like that, I'm okay with, but I don't believe you should gift food. What are your thoughts?
I don't think you should gift food either, because what I was getting at is because they're going to end up in your business going, hey, where's my food?
Right.
Because they're not thinking it, oh, thank you for the gift. And they're like, oh, I'm sad. I didn't get any food this week. No, they're going to be like, hey, Krista, you know what? You've been giving me this stuff every week. Where's my food? Because now I'm in the habit of getting this from you. So I'm not going out to hunt and scavenge for myself.
Right.
And so I'm going to get mad about it because why are you not bringing it to me?
Exactly.
An easy meal is an easy meal. Why will, it's like, I'm mad because you're not bringing me the food. I don't think, oh, thanks for the present. That would not be my thinking. It was like, hey, here's some food. Hey, here comes the blonde lady bringing me some food.
Right.
Here's the blonde lady bringing me for some food. And then all of a sudden you're not doing it.
Then you're not doing it and they quit. Yeah.
Yeah. So would they be up in your windows going, hey, blonde lady, what are you doing in there? Why are you not bringing me the food? Right. So I don't think gifting is a thing because, like I said, you could get one that is temperamental, and they get mad because you're not bringing it.
Right.
I get we have the curious ones that are looking in on you and saying, what you doing?
Right.
That looks like fun. What you doing? And we have that. But then, like I said, if gifting is involved, then you're going to get yourself into a whole different kind of ball of wax. Is what I want to say. It's a whole new can of worms for you that you really don't want to get into.
Yeah.
It's just like with any wild animals, with bears or with anything. Even if you watch in Indonesia where they're feeding the monkeys and all that kind of stuff, and they get aggressive because they know you have food and you're going to feed them. And if you don't give them that food, they're going to take it. You know what I mean? So there are a lot of injuries because of these monkeys doing that. Because they set up, I can't remember now, this is many, many years ago, I read this about, they set up altars and stuff for these monkeys, and they bring them like a little buffet every day. They bring them buffet, people bring them food, and they put them all on these altars. So what happens when you don't put food on that altar, or you're walking around near them with food, they're thinking, that's my food, and I'm going to take it.
And unfortunately, even like bears, bears have to be destroyed because, people are leaving their trash out. Might not even mean to be doing it, but these bears are getting a taste of our food and coming back. And unfortunately, it's not the bears' fault, but they're getting food there. So they're coming back and a lot of them have to be destroyed,
Digging through trash and things like that becomes their new way of hunting.
Right.
Because it's easier and believe it or not, it's everywhere.
Right.
So they don't have to go hunt. They just have to find the nearest trash can with the best goodies.
Right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, they're going to tear up the trash. They're going to do all that. That's why they have to have like locks on your trash cans and special cages for your trash because it's an easy get. You know what I mean? And that it's like we're not even gifting, but we're gifting. We're like, well, here's a bag of trash. You just dig through and get what you want.
Right.
That's kind of like what's happening. So that's an easy fix. That's why it's becoming such a problem. And of course, with the environmental part of it, as we're building and moving into their living room, this is going to become more of an issue. So, you just have to take your chances. I mean, we like I said, we've seen them in downtown areas, bears in downtown areas walking around. They're getting brave. I don't know if it's getting brave or, they're just coming in to get the easy food.
The easy food. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like Deborah said, that's why bears rip the doors off cars. Yeah. And you see that all the time.
Absolutely. That's why whenever I go anywhere, I do sleep in my vehicle. There's many reasons why I sleep in my vehicle. Anybody can tease me if they want to. I sleep in my vehicle, but I do not leave coolers out. I don't leave food out. I leave nothing.
Yeah. Well, and you leave nothing in your car. Like, when we went to Colorado and, at the Airbnb that we stayed at.
Right.
In the thing, it says, don't even leave like canned sodas in your cars. Like, I don't know if they got that good.
No. Absolutely not. Like, everything is to be covered and put away.
In there or what? But yeah. So
yeah. Yeah, I put if I do have a cooler, it does go in my car and it is shut. There's no open containers, chips, anything. Nothing's open. I mean, there is literally no food smell that you can smell.
Yeah.
Yep. So I get it. I get it. But I don't know. Well, anyway.
Yeah.
So it's been fun. I mean, it's been nice. I've been wanting to talk about it for a long time too, because it's one of those stories I love, but yet,
I know,
so
right?
Things that make you go, Yep. I don't know.
Makes you go, And what next weekend we have our event at the Ray County Museum.
Yes.
Interested? The link to purchase tickets is pinned at the top of chat.
Yeah.
And that'll be fun when we have a Paranormal Paul will be there. Greg Ogles is actually flying in and
absolutely.
So it's going to be fun. Good time. We're going to talk some cryptid. We're going to, our friends, Terry from After Dark Paranormal. She's got like the ghost helmet, like the God's helmet, all that. She's going to bring all that and show everybody. So it's going to be fun. And we're going to feed you.
Yeah. And we're going to feed you. So, I mean, we're going to have interesting conversations all day long, and then, because I brought it up. I mean, maybe we'll do a little ghost hunting during the day. Because a lot of people don't realize, hey, they're active during the day.
And at the museum, because I witnessed it at the daylight at the museum.
Yeah, they're still walking and talking and doing their thing during the day. So we just dismiss it, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So like she said, it is $65 for all afternoon, for dinner, and all night long. And it's just going to be a great event. So just go to Eventbrite, click on Blondes and Booze. It should be the first event that pops up there, and get your tickets now because we're close. We're close.
Right, absolutely. And then next Thursday, I'm pretty excited about next Thursday's show. I got to tell you, do you know who it is? Do you remember? It's on the calendar. His name is on the calendar.
Isn't it Thomas?
It is.
Thomas. Yeah, it's Thomas Ferrario. He actually is an investigator at Marley Woods, which is the Skinwalker Ranch of Missouri. Now, we interviewed him, gosh, it's been a couple years now, but it's fascinating. And he is he is just a great guy and so knowledgeable, but you're going to,
and he's been investigating it like many, many years, like a long time. And so, they say Marley Woods is like the Skinwalker Ranch or Blind Frog Ranch or Bradshaw Ranch. Right. It has all the same properties, all the same weirdness goes on. So we're going to talk about everything that happens there, everything from ghosts to cryptids to spontaneous combustion.
Yes. And, it is been investigated by Ben Hansen, who's been on the Travel Channel.
Mhm.
It has been investigated by him. So we're excited to see where everything else is going. Thank
Yep.
you, Tatui. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
We
Thank you.
appreciate you so much.
Absolutely.
But I
Absolutely.
mean, it's just going to be so exciting. We've been wanting to talk to him, but there's been many family reasons why we have had to put it off. But
Yep.
now he's back. So I'm
Yep.
excited. It's going to be a great time. So join us Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central.
Mhm.
And it's going to be fun because you're going to see me like this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be a good show. I'm pretty
Right.
excited about that.
Right.
And then, again, as BMR says, like one of us are on every night of the week. And so like, we don't even do the times anymore because like, tomorrow night is Paranormal Paul, Donny Cho, so I mean, it's
Late night with BMR and the gals,
yeah. Hey, I'll be on tomorrow night with him. Will you?
Right.
No,
Right.
that's right. You got to work Sunday. I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
I know. I took an extra shift this week,
Yeah.
so I'm working 6 days this week. And so I'm working Sunday, so I won't be on late night tomorrow night. I'll miss it, but
I'll be back finally after a month of being gone.
right?
Unfortunately, I well, not unfortunately, but my granddaughter is 2 tomorrow. It's her birthday. And so we're having her birthday party, but I won't be back in time to do Paranormal Paul's show, which he knows about. So unfortunately, I'll have to wait another week to be back to that one, but I will be on BMR's tomorrow night. So
Awesome.
That'll be fun.
Right.
So anything else, Brandy? Let me think. Oh, yes, real quick. Thank you, Josh Casto and T2E. You guys both are awesome. Appreciate you both. So
Thank you.
yeah. And do you have anything else?
I don't. Like I said, I'm glad we got to talk about that subject tonight. And like I said, everybody leave something in the comment. What do you think? Is it a true story? Is it a fake story? Did it kind of happen? What do you think he embellished? And what do you think it is?
Yeah. And if you're interested in reading that article and you do have Facebook, the Facebook group, our Blondes and Booze Facebook group, I did pin the link to that article. You guys are welcome to read it.
Read up on that.
Yep. Anyway, I guess until tomorrow night, I'll see everybody on Paranormal Ball Show.
Right. All right, everybody. Good night.
All right. Good night, everybody. Hold on. I got to find the exit.
Find the button.
All right. Good night, everybody.